it's reflecting. So I've got to put a little black on it, make it disappear.
So I could slant my
Yeah, that's fine.
readings, that type of thing. So
That's fine. It's just that the plastic reflects off the light right at the camera. So I'll just cover it up a little bit. Thank you. That helps. There we go. And I hate to... Okay, that should do it. Okay, go ahead and use away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 9th annual Woody Trautman lecture, this one to feature Joe Moran. I'm Reverend Tim Barger. I'm the senior minister here at First Unitarian Church of Toledo. I want to extend a warm welcome to everybody and give a little plug for First Unitarian as well. On most Sundays, unless there are special circumstances, we meet in here in this room at 11 a.m. every Sunday, and you are cordially invited to come and check us out for that as well. I want to say that this coming Sunday is kind of special because preaching that Sunday will be the executive director of the MultiFaith Council of Northwest Ohio, Angie Fredericks. So you'll get to hear her. Yes. And I understand that the sermon will be written by Sunday morning as well. So thank you. And so every Sunday at 11 is one thing. We're going to have a picnic on the 4th of July on our grounds. And if you wanted to stop by for that and meet some of our members, you could do that. And we're having my calendar says church party on the 11th, and it's basically a small dance with karaoke and other things. That's just kind of a social time to be in Fellowship Hall, where you will be later on to sample some Vietnamese food. So that's the first Unitarian aspect. The more important aspect tonight is the MultiFaith Council of Northwest Ohio. And we're very pleased to have had an association with the MultiFaith Council from its beginning, and to know that Woody and Judy Trautman, who is here tonight, one of the co-founders of the MultiFaith Council, were members of this congregation. So I want to welcome all of you, and I want to turn this over next to Dr. Angie Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Reverend Tim, and thank you to the congregation of First Unitarian Church of Toledo for letting us use the space tonight. I also want to thank our other sponsors, the Friends of the Christian Science Monitor, Joe and Joyce Moran, Sherry Williams, Jean Pagano, and Miss Jenny's School of Dance for helping to offset the cost of the meal. We're also asking folks to make donations to help, again, with the cost of the meal, and also to help with supporting programs for the MultiFaith Council. So if you didn't get a chance to pay, please, on your way out, do that, and also no one will be turned away if you don't pay. So yes, welcome to the 9th annual Woody Trautman Lecture. Woody Trautman was an incredible man. He was somebody who believed in a better world, believed that people could come together across their differences and do amazing things. So this lecture is our way of honoring him every year. And we're really excited this year to have Joe with us, talking about one of the most significant conflicts in American history that continues to shape our nation today. We are living through a time of conflict, right? Conflict here, conflict abroad. And so now this is the time for us to talk about peace, to find ways to work together. And that's what MultiFaith Council does every day. Our mission is really about bringing people together across faiths, across cultural differences, and finding way to build community. I don't want to keep talking. We want to get to the good stuff. One of the things that I'm excited about tonight is we have our dancers from the Dances of Universal Peace who will be performing one of their dances. And the Dances of Universal Peace are a meditative spiritual practice it's really quite wonderful. So this will be led by Judy Lee Trauman, who is also one of the founders of the MultiFaith Council and is married to Woody. So, all right, I think that's it. Judy, you want to come up and do the dance?
I'm really fortunate to have a musician. David Strickler is going to be playing for us, and it makes my job a lot easier because I don't have to wield the guitar as well as lead the dances. But my dancers are beginning to get into position now for the first dance that we're going to do, and I'm going to show you some ways that you can participate, because the dances aren't meant to be a show. They're meant to be an embodiment of a spiritual practice, and they're called the International Dances of Peace, and peace is our theme tonight, so it kind of fits that we dance. We'll start with a dance that is inspired. The words are inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh in the Buddhist tradition, and it's one of the few dances that we do that's not a circle dance. It's one where we actually practice walking peaceful steps. So I'm going to have David play it once, and I'll sing it through so that you get an idea of what it's like, and then I'll show you how you can participate. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. I bow to you, a flower. I bow to you, a flower. Now my dancers are spread around the sanctuary so that they can take their peaceful steps. And so the first two lines, and I hope you all have the words because you can sing along if you like. They'll be taking their peaceful steps, and then they'll stop to do the motion, I bow to you, a flower. And that is also repeated, but we would like you to repeat it to somebody who's next to you. So they'll be bowing to you in the audience, and you can then spread the joy. So we'll try doing it a few times because part of this practice is to do it a few times so that it kind of sinks in. So we'll get started. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. I bow to you, a flower. I bow to you, a flower. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. I bow to you, a flower. I bow to you, a flower. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. I bow to you, a flower. I bow to you, a flower. Last time. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. May I take peaceful steps upon the earth. I bow to you, a flower. I bow to you, a flower. Now my dancers will come forward, and this one will be a circle dance. And we don't have room in here, thank goodness, because there's so many of you, which I'm delighted about. But we can dance it, and I will stay up here and do some hand movements that you can do seated. And that way you can be a part of the embodiment of this practice. So this one we'll demonstrate once. It's called Mirror, 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 and if you have a copy of the words, it's actually a dance that was started in Russian when some of our dancers in this country went to the Soviet Union to promote peace. And we're not going to sing it in Russian because I don't know Russian. We're going to sing it in English, but the last line is Mirror, Mirror, Mirror. And I was a language teacher, and so I know that language reflects culture. And I think that's so cool in this instance because the Russian word mir means both peace and earth. So when you're saying that one word, you're actually saying peace on earth. And maybe you know that their satellite is called the Mir. So, you know, we sometimes get some fixed ideas about what other people think about peace, but their language reflects it. They want it to. So we'll do it once, and then I'll be doing some of the hand motions that you can be doing as we continue it. So. Last time. Thank you. We dance at Monroe Street United Methodist Church, usually on third Tuesdays of the week. And if you would like to join us, it's really a wonderful kind of practice to do together. So, and you can see me sometime tonight, and I'll get you on our mailing list. Thank you for participating. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, dancers. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorraine Carpenter. I'm board chair of MFC, and I'm so happy to see you all here this evening. Thank you all for coming. Joe Moran. What do we say about Joe? I mean, so many things. He's been on MFC since the very beginning. He has helped build beds and build houses, and he's started, I believe he helped start the men's group, which is a very important group for the MultiFaith Council. He was a medic in the war, and he's an amazing, amazing man, and I'm not here to speak. Let me introduce Joe Moran. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Reverend Tim. Thank everyone for being here. I see a lot of people that I know, a lot of friends, and a lot of friends that I haven't met yet. I want to also thank Angie Fitzpatrick, the Executive Director of MultiFaith Council, for all her work on this event. And at the back with Jeff Slauson and Andy Gottman, our tech crew, and there's so many more. Thank you to the dancers. I feel peaceful. I'm honored to be asked to, by the MultiFaith Council, to present the 2026 9th Annual Woody Trauman Lecture. Woody Trauman was an amazing man. Many of you here knew him. I heard this said of a man years ago. It really fits Woody. A man whose heart was filled with ideas. Mind was filled with ideas. Heart was filled with love, and his feet were on the ground. What thing could better be said about a person? And I cannot think of someone along with his wife Judy, here with us. And please let's give a round of applause to Judy Trauman. I cannot think of a couple that have represented multi-faith peace and understanding more than the Trautmans. I also want to recognize, as I will later, a few individuals and organizations with us, and I hope he's out here, but from Veterans for Peace, former Vietnam Navy Corpsman Mike Ferner. Mike, are you here? He's on his way. Okay, well, I'll tell him that you appreciated his coming. I also want to make a very special welcome to a couple of Vietnam vets. Fred Grimm and his wife Jill. Fred, please stand up. Fred was wounded in Vietnam, and he has led the Dove Foundation for 25 years. I had the privilege of going back with Fred and Jill this last year in the spring. We had an amazing trip. 25 years he has gone back to that country and invested an enormous amount of his time, talent, energy, money. The Dove Fund, I can't say enough about it, but if you read my book, you'll find out more about the Dove Fund. And it's just an amazing organization that has given back so much to the country of Vietnam, especially its children. I also want to recognize John Abbey. John, are you out here somewhere now? John, could you please stand? John, another Vietnam veteran, heavily invested in Dove. Thank you, John, thank you both for all your service, all you've done. Thank you both. Our other Vietnam or Vietnam-era veterans here, Vietnam-era or Vietnam in Vietnam. Our other veterans here of any type, at any time. Yes, please stand. Dr. No, yes. Thank you so much for your service. Well, the lecture theme is peace, memory, truth, and the work of the community, and it fits well with what I have to say today about the pursuit of peace, the memory of a war, the truth of what must be said, and the work that lies ahead. So today, I'm here to say that of all the evils that humans are capable of, war is the greatest, for it's state-sponsored, legitimized, premeditated, and celebrated mass murder. The philosopher Voltaire said, "It is forbidden to kill, therefore all murderers are punished, unless they kill in large numbers and to the sound of trumpets." I speak today not as a pacifist, but a skeptic. As much as I admire Gandhi, Dr. King, Dorothy Day, some wars, and they're very rare in history, in my opinion, had to be fought. Vietnam was not one of them. I make this presentation against the backdrop of that war, a war that ended over 50 years ago, and one I participated in that was tragic, brutal, and senseless. In my book, I call it the War on Vietnam, not the more common Vietnam War or war in Vietnam, because it was nothing less than a war, in my opinion, on the Vietnamese people, their culture, and their environment. With its great prevalence, we must finally agree with General George Patton. Compared to war, all other forms of human endeavor shrink to insignificance. God, I love it so. The roots of war are biological and evolutionary. Only humans, chimpanzees, engage in organized violence. And anthropologists tell us that our early hunter-gatherer skirmishes were driven by competition over scarce resources and mate selection. But this could scarcely be called war as we understand it. Then around 10,000 BCE, humans began farming and establishing permanent communities. It was then that stored grains, livestock, sophisticated tools and weapons, and land emerged as valued property that led to wealth, power, and prestige among some members of the community. And this was the beginning of stratified society, the haves and the have-nots. With the rise of the state around 3000 BCE, societies grew more densely packed, developing hierarchies, leaders, professional standing armies to protect their wealth and raid that of their neighbors, and warfare as we know it today began. While it's all together proper and fitting that a nation pay tribute to those killed and injured by war, assist its veterans and their families, over time, a culture of war can develop. Anniversaries of battles are celebrated, parades held, medals awarded, monuments erected, solemn ceremonies observed, all to impress upon the public that war is a noble, patriotic, and dutiful enterprise. And then, as wealth and power accumulate, a nation's economy may come to be based on war. According to Chris Hedges, who has written 2 books on this subject, his latest being The Greatest Evil is War, since World War II, the United States economy has been on a permanent war basis, and President Eisenhower, of course a warrior himself, warned us to be aware of what? The military-industrial complex. The motives behind war are typically historical injustices, imagined and real, territorial ambition, desire for natural resources, and include the idea that some of us are superior to others. War requires that soldiers on opposite sides that have never met each other and know nothing personally about each other and have a great deal in common probably, kill each other for reasons often understood only by the state. For the soldier in the field, the only reason to kill the enemy is to keep the enemy from killing you. Marine Corps Vietnam veteran Carl Merlantis, in his book Matterhorn, said, "It's only by the grace of God that you are on one side and your enemy is on the other. I think I could have been born in North Vietnam. I had no choice, being born in a little logging town in Oregon. It set me on one side of the equation, but it wasn't my choice. I can say with authority that I never heard the soldiers I served with once talk about the domino theory, preventing the spread of communism, or making the world safe for democracy. Our daily concerns were staying alive, what we were going to eat, our physical health, and how many days we had left in country. War is the greatest evil because of who enlists the killing, to do the killing and dying. It's not the 60 and 70-year-olds that call for war, but men, and increasingly now young women, barely out of their teens. Youth still operating with what we know as the adolescent brain. Impressionable, full of energy, seeking adventure, looking for ways to be grown up, raised on war heroics, and often without other options, are prime targets. The average combat soldier in Vietnam was 19 1/2. Of the over 58,000 killed in Vietnam, 34,000 never saw their 19th birthday. 34,000 never saw their 19th birthday. And while I'm appalled by Russia's flagrant violation of Ukraine, I have nothing but sympathy for its young soldiers, and of course those of the Ukrainians. War is the greatest evil because it kills non-combatants, while military claims, it avoids civilian casualties by precision targeting, smart bombs, warning leaflets, announcing free fire zones. Civilians will be killed, particularly in urban warfare, and often are even purposely targeted. War excuses these deaths as collateral damage. General James Gavin said in Vietnam, an epic tragedy, if a village is fought over 5 or 6 times, a great many civilians will die. The whole pattern of life will be destroyed. As the war continues to drag on, we destroy ourselves, the objective for which we are fighting. To destroy an entire village for the sake of killing one Viet Cong was sure to gain the hatred of the Vietnamese people. And an army major during the war made this statement, which would be worthy of Franz Kafka. We had to destroy the village to save it. The The war in Vietnam took the lives of over 2 million civilians on both sides. War, and particularly wars of conscription, are the greatest evil because they disproportionately enlist and claim the lives of those living on the margins. Frontline soldiers in Vietnam were overrepresented by people of color, lower socioeconomic status and education, and with a lack of political connections and civilian alternatives. War is the greatest evil because of the labels it creates to divide the combatants, making it easier for them to kill each other. Those in your tribe are rational, heroic, just, and godly. Those in the enemy tribe are humane, inhumane, barbaric, and unchristian, or whatever religion applies. By reducing the enemy to subhumans, a soldier's guilt is reduced. You name the war in history, and you'll find the labels. In the war in Vietnam, the Vietnamese were variously labeled gooks, dinks, slopes. War is the greatest evil because it is a license to kill without consequences. In a war, a civilian can be killed for the flimsiest suspicion of being or being sympathetic with an enemy and no proof. Murder under these circumstances seldom meets more than a transfer or reprimand because it is your word against theirs. In some cases, the killer may be given a medal. We had a soldier transferred to our platoon that was rumored of killing a civilian. Seeing his actions gave us little doubt he was capable of murder. War is the greatest evil when it invokes God's blessing on the slaughter. Each side is convinced it's supported by the deity. The winning side attributes its victory to God being with it, and the losers, the defeat was the result of not following the proper rituals or a lack of faith. In Appendix A of my book, I include a story told by a veteran in one of our platoons. This is the kind of thing you can't make up. Here's a portion of a transcript provided to me by a history professor that archives veteran stories at Grand Valley State University and who recorded the interview. It involves a mental health evaluation for post-traumatic stress disorder by a psychiatrist, a doctor, of a veteran seriously injured after being blown off his APC, armored personnel carrier, by a rocket-propelled grenade. The interview took place many years after the war, actually about 6 years ago. Psychiatrist: I know that you didn't have a lot of good things to say about your time in the Army. Veteran: I did not. Psychiatrist: wasn't there one single incident that brought you a little bit of happiness? Veteran: it didn't take me a lot more than a couple of seconds to say, you know, actually there was. And he reiterated a story to the psychiatrist. The story is that they had been involved in a skirmish and several of their platoon members had been wounded. And the sergeant said to them, his commanding sergeant, we're going to teach them a lesson. Kill everything that moves. Everything that moves, you kill it. An old Vietnamese man, crossed his path. He said, I couldn't do it. My conscience would not allow me to kill that old man going to a well. As a result, he was put up for a court-martial. The court-martial never developed, thankfully, it never developed. So now back to the story. Psychiatrist: well, I understand you think you did a good thing. Good. In your heart, you believe you did something great. Veteran: yeah, I'll agree with that 100%. Psychiatrist: I must tell you, I disagree. You taught your soldiers they could disobey a direct order. You taught them that. Veteran: I didn't think it was illegal. Psychiatrist: no, you taught them that. Veteran: no, I did something right. Psychiatrist: no, you didn't. But I'll give you this. It was an unjust war. But you know the reason it was an unjust war? Because not enough people prayed about it. If more people in the United States had prayed about it, then they would have gotten God's attention, and he would have heard them, and he would have made it a just war. So here we have it. Praying to God to justify killing, mass killing. War is the greatest evil because in impoverished nations, it leads to widespread sex trade. and its attendant sexually transmitted diseases, and fatherless children. Estimates place the number of female prostitutes in Vietnam at the height of the war at a conservative 300,000. Most were forced into it to support their families. This resulted in the birth of an estimated 30,000 Asian children who faced discrimination from the Vietnamese and were referred to as boy doi, or children of the dust. War is the greatest evil because expecting strict and unthinking obedience to orders, it discourages soldiers from exercising their conscience. It estimated that over 75% of the soldiers on the war in Vietnam that suffered from PTSD did so because of actions they took, were party to, or witnessed, or the guilt of survival when comrades did not. And of the over 58,000 U.S. soldiers that were killed in Vietnam, 382 committed suicide. Only the most brutalized sociopathic soldier can escape the moral responsibility or the moral consequence of killing another human being, especially a child. Soldiers are rarely aware that their first loyalty is to support and defend what? The U.S. Constitution and orders according to the regulations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Soldiers have a legal duty to refuse an order in violation of the UC and can be found criminally liable for not doing so. War is the greatest evil because its evolution in technology has led to the ability to kill at greater and greater distances, and referred to sometimes as sanitized killing. For most of human history, a warrior could not escape the consequences of battle. For combat was personal, up close, messy, brutal. During the war in Vietnam, B-52 bomber could fly silently 40,000 feet above its target and drop a 750 to 1,000 pound bomb, the sonic roar of which from a kilometer away would leave a person permanently deaf and the shock waves knocking them senseless. Any hit within half a kilometer, would collapse walls of the reinforced bunker, burning alive the people that were cowering inside. Seen up close, the bomb craters were 50 feet across and 30 feet deep. Each B-52 could unleash 30 of these, and within minutes and a half hour later, the pilot could be back at base enjoying a steak dinner. The armored personal carriers and tanks that I rode on could also kill, but a lesser distance of about several hundred yards. We would use a gentle sounding term of softening up an area with a 50 caliber machine gun, leaving it to our grunts to discover a baby still nursing in its dead mother's breast. Drone warfare is the latest technology to kill at a distance. War is the greatest evil because there are no winners. John Paul Sartre said, "Once you hear the details of victory, it's hard to distinguish it from defeat." In a haunting passage from The Sorrow of War, a novel of North Vietnam by Bao Ninh, the protagonist, Kien, of the victorious North Vietnamese army, returns to a battlefield many years after the war. Unable to find a landmark, he speaks about what he did find. What remained was sorrow, the immense sorrow, the sorrow of having survived, the sorrow of war. But for Hoa and countless other beloved comrades, nameless ordinary soldiers, those who sacrificed for others and for their Vietnam, raising high the name of Vietnam, creating a spiritual beauty in the horrors of the conflict, but for them, the war would have been another brutal, sadistic exercise. Kien himself would have been dead long ago had it not been for the sacrifice of others. He might have even killed himself to escape the psychological burden of killing others. After 1975, with the war ended, all that had quieted. The winds of war had stopped. The branches of the conflict had stopped rustling, as we had won, Kien thought. And that meant justice had won. And that had been some consolation, or had it? Think carefully. Look at your own existence. Look carefully at the peace we have now. Painful, bitter, sad. And look who won the war. To win martyrs had sacrificed their lives in order that others might survive. Not a new phenomenon in war, but for those still living to know that the kindest, most worthy people have all fallen away and even been tortured, humiliated before being killed or buried and wiped away by the machinery of war. Then this beautiful landscape of common peace today is an appalling paradox. Justice may have won, but cruelty, death, and inhuman violence have also won. Just look and think. It's the truth. Losses can be made good. Damage can be repaired. Wounds will heal in time. But the psychological scars of war will remain forever. And I would add that wars do not end with an armistice, but their memory lingers, and they sow the seed for other war. War is the greatest evil because governments frequently are ignorant about the enemy motives and mislead and lie about the reasons for war and how it's conducted. In Vietnam, the United States government said it was there to stop the spread of communism, the domino theory, viewing Vietnam through the lens of the Cold War, and failing to understand until it was too late that the Vietnamese conflict was seen by them as a civil war. We were also there because we had the economic and military power to intervene, what Senator William Fulbright at the time called the arrogance of power. The belief the United States had both a right and duty to remake other nations in our image. We continue in that belief today. Throughout the war, American public was repeatedly misled and lied to about operations and war's progress. Trust me, if you don't trust me, I have all kinds of documentation I can present. Both Presidents Johnson and Nixon lived in an echo chamber, listening to those voices that promised victory was just around the corner. It was clear that victory on our terms was not possible, and as a result, more and more lives were sacrificed. Saving face, there were sacrificed to save face. Saving face can never be a reason for sacrificing soldiers and civilian lives. War is the greatest evil because it not only kills people, but it kills all living things. The U.S. dropped 5 million tons of bombs on Vietnam. 5 million tons. More bombs than were dropped in all theaters in World War II. All theaters. More bombs were dropped in Vietnam in all theaters in World War II, and in an area a little bit close to the size of the state of Nevada. And a concentrated area, you know, Fred, within that area. So it dropped 400,000 tons of napalm. Very famous photo of that young girl. I have her book, by the way. It's quite an interesting book. The defoliant not only killed and crippled thousands of U.S. soldiers and Vietnamese through birth defects, but it continues to do so today. And I'm thankful that the Dove organization, that's one of their projects. Flying over Vietnam today, you'll still see large swaths of land stripped bare of foliage with the appearance of a moonscape. These weapons decimated wildlife, causing soil and water degradation, introducing toxic chemicals into the environment. They killed native animals. Unexploded ordnance from the war continues to kill Vietnamese. This is a picture of when I was there some years ago in Hue, the old imperial capital, where we had to watch where we were walking because there was unexploded ordnance. I said earlier there are no winners in war, but that's not exactly true. There are two winners. The arms manufacturers and the merchants. Billions of dollars are made annually by companies that develop the latest weapon systems. These companies and their lobbyists exert tremendous influence over government officials pushing for military intervention in certain spots all over the world. A CEO of one of these companies that I was able to get an excerpt from observed that while war games are very helpful in testing state-of-the-art weapons, their capability is best tested under real war conditions. They also make billions, of course, selling weapons to upgrade the capability, military capability of our allies. So I've given a long list of the evils of war, but what can be done? Each of us in our own way contributes to the problem of war or its solution, just as we do the environment, poverty, and gun violence. And we should never forget that doing nothing is a choice. Doing nothing is a choice. War seems to be such a long-standing an entrenched problem, that we might throw up our hands and say, you know what, pass it off to somebody. Maybe the next generation can handle the mess we've got ourselves in. This is an old question. Should a person work for the good and virtuous, knowing their efforts likely to have no long-term effect? Is good its own reward? Or must there be a positive outcome, and one in our lifetime? Well, one man asked another, why do you keep working so hard at a vocation that you see so little results from? And the other responded, if you expect to see the final results in this lifetime, you've not had a big enough dream. As a medic, I believe that saving lives was good, even for a bad cause. Good, wherever it occurs, is its own reward. Excuse me. And by doing nothing, we can certainly be assured of the same result. Albert Camus said, we used to wonder where war lived. What was it that made it so vile? And now we know where it lives. It's inside ourselves. We must each look inside of ourselves for warlike traits of greed, anger, hate, because bombs facilitate war. Humans make war. We need to know each other. One of the greatest obstacles to war is getting to know your foe on a personal level. It's very easy to kill a gook, a monster, until you find the monster's a lot like you. We as medics and corpsmen and those as doctors and nurses had a wonderful opportunity to be peacemakers, as our creed was to be healers to all that came before us. Had the U.S. come, to Vietnam as builders, not destroyers, I believe the war could have been averted. I think we could have reached some kind of compromise with Ho Chi Minh in the north. That is why membership in organizations like the MultiFaith Council is so important, to give us the opportunity to interact and learn from people of different faith backgrounds. I would urge you to consider joining the MultiFaith Council, and especially vital in this time, so much division. Well, I believe to whom much is given, much is expected. There is a chapter in the book called Accidents and Luck. Everyone here, for all the hard work you've done to get to this point in life, should have immense gratitude for all the luck you've had. Think about it. We have benefited from gifts we did not and could not earn and cannot pay back. We can only pay forward. I'd urge each of you to not only be examples of peace to youth in your lives, to find one or more youth organizations in our community that you could be an example of peace to. And I want to acknowledge at least one that I know here this evening, and maybe two. Dr. Marvin Whitfield in the back, and Tasia Wad from Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I'll get it out. Please raise your hands. Thank you so much, Tay and Dr. Whitfield, for being here. And we have literature out in the back. Please take some. It's a wonderful organization, national organization. I can't say enough about them. And I don't know whether Diana Bush or Christian Zilke are here, but I've been involved for a number of years with Read for Literacy, another wonderful program that I'm able to tutor a couple days a week at an inner city school at Rosa Parks. I love it, and it's just another way of giving back to our youth. We have literature for both of those programs outside, as well as literature for Veterans for Peace out there from Mike's organization. Finally, if someone were to ask you tomorrow, what did he talk about tonight? What did he talk about, okay? There could be several different answers. If you remember one thing this evening, I would say let it be this. For all our beautiful diversity, we have a lot of diversity out here. Skin color, religion, ethnicity, and so on. There's one thing we all share in common. We must never forget we're members of the human race. When we hear about, read about, see individuals that have been tortured, raped, humiliated, abandoned, buried alive, the result of the machinery of war, we must always put aside our political differences. We must always put aside our historical differences and respond to a higher order of being, our common denominator, humanity. And until we do this, we dishonor both it and our religion. Thank you, and may peace be upon you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Angie, I don't know how we're doing on time.
Doing good. Yeah, take some questions.
Okay, so I understand that I can take a few questions from the audience, so I'd be glad to. I think who we got back here with a microphone? Somebody who have a microphone they can bring forward? If not, you can just stand up and I'll try. Yes, yeah.
Joe, I don't need a microphone, but you have skirted around what's happening today in Iran and all of that. Everything you related to, we're all back here just saying, yeah. We're knowing that. You want to use this as a segue on talking about anything on the current events?
Well, the easier answer is read my book. Get my book, and you'll get all the answers you want. I do have a section on there called, I look at pacifism and I look at just war theory. And I don't have the time to go into just war theory, but it goes in quite a bit of detail about what justifies going to war, and then once a war is conducted, what justifies the way it's carried out, okay? So I would just say this: all wars are bad. All wars are bad. Even though I said I'm not a pacifist, there's no winners. There are really no winners, and I made a quote earlier. So the war going on right now, and I said also that very few wars are justified, okay? And I put that in that category. So, you know, I guess that's the best I can say. War is brutal. There's no winners. The people that come out on the winning side, supposedly, officially, they've lost so much. And again, it's laying the groundwork for future wars. All you're doing is setting the seeds, planting the seeds for another war, because you're creating such hatred. And I've experienced it in my own family, because my father was a prisoner of war. And he developed his family developed a very intense dislike of Germans, okay? Sad, but it was true, because of, I'm dedicating the book. You may know that I dedicated the book to my great uncle who was killed in the Battle of the Somme in World War I. That has lived with our family for 4 generations. We kept hearing stories about them. My father was kicked in the theater when they showed pictures of British forces killing Germans, made to clap. Now, here you're a young boy, made to clap because somebody's being killed. But that's, again, an example of how war lives on, and the legacy, doesn't die with an armistice. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Another question. Yeah, Sue?
How did you take care of your well-being?
How did you say, Sue?
Joe, how did you take care of your well-being?
My well-being?
When you came back?
Well, I think veterans that came back, I came back to a bad situation. You may recall from the book in San Francisco, it was not a good, pleasant situation that I came back to. And it was not a popular war, and we kind of knew it over in Vietnam. We've been bits and pieces of it. When we came back, of course, we really found out it was not a popular war. So, I'm sorry, it had up here on this border. So, I think I handled it pretty well. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to get the best reception, and maybe I handled it better than some. Some veterans were walking on eggshells. They didn't know. I think they thought people were afraid. Are they going to go off, or what are they going to do? They didn't know how to act. I mean, you're coming back to a completely different world. This is business as usual. This is just another day for everybody else. You're coming back from a war zone within just minutes of being in a battle situation almost, you know what I'm saying? So it's quite a transition. I was very lucky because I ended up 1 year in Germany. I got to spend a whole year in Berlin, of all places. And that was a nice transition for me. But for guys coming back immediately to come back to the States, that was more of a challenge. Anybody else? Yeah, David?
I want to thank you for this talk and for your book. And it's obvious that you've spoken so much passion about something that means so much to you and has affected your life, and how you have used it in giving forward. And I did think of a passage that I read once upon a time where the author said, sane response to war for winners and losers is to mourn.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's again, the great book. I highly recommend The Sorrow of War by Bao Dinh. It's just an amazing book from a North Vietnamese perspective. And when I was researching and getting into this, I thought, you know what? I need to know more about what the North Vietnamese said. I need to know more what the Viet Cong said. So I read a number of books, and I'm still reading books from their point of view, because there's two sides to a story. And it was terrible on both sides. It was brutal, and again, it was absolutely senseless. A senseless war. And I always go back to the number 58,000. 58,000. 34,000, or whatever that number was, under 19. Had every right to be here, sitting out with you. What a shame. Any other? Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, so Joe, for a little context, Joe washes dishes for us every Tuesday. So I mean, he does the Read for Literacy and Big Brothers Big Sisters, and then he comes and he works and washes dishes. And years ago, I found out he was a medic, and I asked him, and he didn't want to say anything about it, which I respect. So I decided to wait a couple of years, and then I asked again, and I still didn't get nothing out of him. And so then he wrote this book, and so I was really eager to read it. And I gotta say, there's a lot of things I like in here, Joe. But you know, on page 14, you know, you say this, and this is something what I really like about it. It says, you say, I have difficulty with those who brag about their military exploits, and I assume that they've served in a rear post, right? And so it was interesting because, you know, I think, and then the other one is, you know, there's also, you know, when you're talking about the pressure of the crowd and groupthink, page 94, you know, you say there is a fear that standing out can only lead to trouble. And it takes special courage to challenge the culture and peer pressure. So you tell personal stories, but then you distill some leadership lessons. So for those of us who are only on page 94, or haven't read the book yet, you know, are there other life or leadership lessons that you felt were important to put in this book like that? Like you know, the first one being about, well, taking the braggadocious with a grain of salt, and then the second one sort of talking about what does it mean to sort of resist things and do what's right. So is there anything else leadership-wise that you learned from your experience that you would like to share with us?
Well, I would say when you give back, you get back. When you give back, you get back. You know, you don't realize sometimes how much you get back when you give to somebody that's in need. And that's an important lesson, I think, for everybody to learn. I think, again, to whom much is given, much is expected. I think if you have been blessed with so many wonderful things, opportunities in your life, I think you have a debt to pay. I really do. And how do you pay it? You pay it forward, particularly to the youth. That's what I love about Dove, because you're so invested in the youth of Vietnam. And I can go on and on about Dove, and I'd be glad to do that sometime. And I think we should actually have a spiritual forum in the back some Sunday just about Dove. And Fred, you need to be there, and so do you, John. So anyways, you know, when you give back, you get back. I don't know, I say those were lessons that I learned from Vietnam. You know, I grew up in Vietnam. I mean, it really did, in an important sense. I mean, I was just aimless, you know, and and I also say that, as tragic as that war was, I grew up there. I don't know how to describe it, you know. I mean, it's you know, you grow up in a terrible environment. I wish I could have grown up in another kind of environment. Some people out here maybe were in the Peace Corps. That would have been a great place to grow up. But I grew up in a war. And, you know, like lots of guys in here, like two at least for sure. Yeah, Beth. I was 20 and I turned 21. I was actually older, a little bit older than, because as I say in my book, I was in college for 2 years. You know, I distinguished myself being on academic probation. I was distinguished as and I was, you know, way over my head. I was just not mature enough. I needed to take a break. It's too bad, but in some cases, kids aren't ready for college. I was taking things way over my head. I like the aura of being a college student, but I wasn't prepared for it. And so I was flunking, academic probation is a nice glorified word for flunking. And so I didn't have many options. I could have gone to Canada because my family's there. And then I could have buckled down, it wasn't going to happen. And then I could have got drafted, but I decided to join. So I thought I joined the Army to join the Medical Corps because I thought I would end up in a hospital and avoid Vietnam. Well, it didn't work out that way. They didn't need hospital people at that time. They needed medics. Maybe that's how we doing in time? Do we have more? Yeah, Fred?
Back to Vietnam with us. What are you most excited about? Recent trip.
Well, we had just an amazing trip in Vietnam, thanks to Fred and so many others. But Fred, we just went from top to bottom. We saw so many Dove projects going on, micro economies or whatever for women. We went to some really rural spots that were just very, very backward and impoverished, where they had one milk cow that was just emaciated, and the latrines that were put in. I went there 10 years before that, where Dove put in water treatment plants. There's just so much that Dove has done. Millions of dollars Dove has sunk into Vietnam, and it's all over the country, in some places more likely than others. Really, you need to get on their website. It's just amazing the kind of work they've done, and it's a desire to give back. And I think for some Vietnam veterans, it's been a healing exercise too, to go back. Some really, they can come to terms with some of the places they were at. And so it's a double, that type of thing. But Vietnam, it's a different world. Let me put it this way: it's not the world I saw. The nighttime resembles almost any big city in the United States. Skyscrapers everywhere. You just would not believe it. Did it take 58,000 killed to build that country like it is today? Couldn't it have happened some other way? That's what I think when I go back there. I have to think about that. When I look at those skyscrapers, there's bodies under those. Yeah.
2020, I interviewed a 94-year-old veteran in the Battle of Palau.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
I interviewed a veteran from Maumee, lived at Genesis Village. He had been at the Battle of Palau in World War II. And he said, he said a lot of things. One of them was he didn't want anybody to thank him for his service. And the last thing he said, he described atrocities that his superiors did to people from Palau in caves. The last thing he said to me, which he did not tell the Library of Congress, who had interviewed him a month before, the last thing he said to me with a tear coming down was, a lot of psychopaths join the military because they can rape, torture, and murder. They know that that nobody will care. And I asked him, I said, did you tell the Library of Congress that? He said, no. He felt a lot of pressure to be gung-ho about war.
Yeah, well, that's the war culture, but there are a certain number of people that get attracted to the military because of the violence. They become brutalized. Sometimes when they go there, they're brutalized already. And so it's a sad fact that it does happen. It does happen. I had one in my platoon. So, Emmett.
So you mentioned the 58,000 Americans that were killed. Do you know how many Viet Cong on either side were killed?
Yeah, millions. There were millions. I don't have the...
Not civilian.
What's that?
Military, not civilian.
No, I'm talking about military. Between the North Vietnamese and South Vietnamese armies, there was well over, I would say, 1 million. It's in my book. I don't have the exact number, but it'll tell you it was over 1 million. 2 million, as I said, civilians killed on both sides. So tremendous number, more North Vietnamese soldiers were killed than South Vietnamese ARVN soldiers, but tremendous numbers on both sides. And of course, they're still dying because of Agent Orange, unexploded ordnance, and so on. So especially children are going out. As I mentioned, one story with a child that got blown up. Yeah.
Let's do one last question, and then we'll
Okay, anyone, one last question?
Right back there.
Yes, Mike?
Thanks, Joe. I can't give you the source for this, but I've read that missing in action, which some people in this country make a big deal about, there's MIA flags all over the place, that over 300,000 Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, and NLF, 300,000 never find or just blown to pieces. So I read The Star of War, and he makes some really good points on that. It's a wonderful book.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Everybody, let's give Joe one more round.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We